one of the things I remember from when I first joined on to Boys Meet World was that I used to say guys a lot. And you'd be like, hey guys. I used to say that a lot on the podcast. And someone who was listening to the podcast had said something to me about it. And she was just like, hey, y'all say guys a lot on the podcast. And this is a assumingly cisgendered woman who said this to me, right? And I say that I'm assuming because it's not a conversation that we've had, but I'm putting the ownership on me that I did assume this. And so I was, I could easily be like, oh, you don't know. We're fine with it. This is not even I can be like, it's not even a podcast for you. But no, honestly, it is. It's a podcast for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And, anyone can call you in, right? And what I received from that is like, this person cares enough about me and cares enough about the platform and understands that this is a great space. You talk about great things. It's just, you say this one thing. And so you should probably work on not saying it if you want to. And, if you want to be inclusive, if you want this to be a space for everyone, this is something that you have to work on. And I can defend myself of saying, this is how I was raised and how I grew up. And, it feels good and comfortable to me. No, I received it. And I don't say it at all now.
It's an adjustment.
This is Boys Meet World, the podcast, a podcast for masculine, queer, trans POCs out here shining and living our best lives. This is a podcast where we talk about all things life, because masculine, QT POCs live life. And this is where we talk about it. World, we are meeting you and the world is meeting us. Actually, earlier today, while I was in the meeting, someone was just like, you know what? I love a cat who advocates for what they need.
Yeah.
And she does. She really does. She's like, give me attention, feed me. I know what I want in this moment. So
you never not know what Naha wants. Naha is very clear and very direct.
Exactly. I'm gonna take a page from her book.
I won't. I'm gonna stay on my bullshit.
You're gonna stay and figure out what I want.
Yeah. You become a psychic and you read my mind and deliver on my needs, please. Thank you.
That could work, I guess, for some.
No, I haven't been too successful. So.
Hasn't quite panned out for you?
Not at all.
We live and we learn, or we don't.
Or we don't.
Or we don't. Hey, everyone. We're back. It's Boys Meet World. I am your host, Irma Brienne. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And today, I have a really great episode because in this season, we haven't had a guest yet. And so this is going to be the first guest for season 3. And back when Uncle Am and I were sitting on our couch in our living room on the lower end of Bronzeville in Chicago, we had multiple conversations about this individual and had plans on having them on the podcast. So I'm glad to say over the past couple of years since we were recording that now this person is a friend of mine, which is just like absolutely like insane to me how things just happen organically. And you look at someone, you admire the work that they're doing, and then y'all become friends. And so here we are. It's 2021, and I am happy to introduce you all. Some of you probably know because I'm learning that there's a lot of connections to this person, to a lot of different people in the community. It's very, very humble about it that I've been sitting thinking. I'm like, it's just amazing to me how people are connected to each other. So, anyways, happy to introduce you all to Zipporah, an amazing creator, advocate. I'm going to say all those things. Designer, entrepreneur. All like
I did some things, huh?
You've done some things. You've done some things. But go ahead and go say hello to the people. Introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, and tell us. And go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, more than just being my friend.
Yeah, first off, that was a lovely introduction. Like, I'm very honored that I'm the first guest, as well as the fact that like y'all were back there in the cut years ago talking about getting me on here. So I'm happy that it happened. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we have built such a genuine and good connection over the few years I've known you. Like, yeah, so my name is Zipporah Jarman. She, her pronouns. I'm from Chicago. A little bit about me. I always feel like I have to like go through like the big points of my resume to like show this picture of who I am. But I have a background in graphic design. Back in 2015 or 16, I founded a company called Pyramid 7, which was a generalist period brand, which did a lot of really dope stuff, really provoked some of the conversation. I like to think that Pyramid 7 was the catalyst into the like more inclusive visual media world that we see today. Which is like my humble brag that I changed the world. Like, like that's like I like to think that. But so I did Pyramid 7, and that for me really just opened up that I didn't necessarily want to be like a business owner. Like part of me, I'm an entrepreneur anyway, but it really highlighted the fact that I really care about representation and diversity, equity, and inclusion in media, and just amplifying voices of minority people who live in the intersections of various identities. And so I use that as like my driving force to create the media that I create now, which is at Howard Brown Health. And I look forward to in the future continuing this work. Outside of that, me and my partner have 4 pets, so that's kind of like running our life. I like to think that I'm funny and charming. I don't know. I'm a great bullshitter too. Like, I don't know. And I love ice cream. So and I have an amazing community in my life. So I think, and a wonderful family and like community support system. So I think that's the drive-by of all that I am.
I think you're an amazing person, definitely an amazing friend. And I saw that when I don't think I've talked to you about this, but I know I've shared this with a couple of other people that you and I think the first time I met you was doing some promo for Pyramid 7. And so I think that was like the first and maybe the only time we had met, but we communicated quite a bit over like social media. And so 2 years ago, this time around, like for your birthday, you invited me to your birthday party. And I would say at that time, I wasn't in like the greatest of places. I think the only thing I felt good about was where I was living, which was with Uncle Am. And I knew that Uncle Am was moving at the end of April. So I was in the process of trying to find like another place to live, but I didn't like my job. There's a whole bunch of other things going on. And so you invited me to your birthday party, and a part of me was like, I'm really tired. But I'm like, we've only met like once, maybe twice. And I'm like, people don't just invite you to their house for their birthday. And so I was just like, no, you know what? I actually want to be this person's friend, so I'm going to go. And I actually stood in one corner of your apartment most of the time. And I intended of going, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go say happy birthday. I didn't know anyone else there but you. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go. I'm going to say happy birthday, and then I'm going to leave. And I ended up being one of the last to leave.
Yeah.
I ended up being one of the last to leave. And I think that moment I realized, man, I need to be like this person, because you have like so many people there. You were so intentional about introducing everyone that walked into the door, which was, it became like a little game, I think, which was like absolutely cool. But everyone that came in, you introduced them, you said their pronouns, and you were like remembering names, pronouns, and then as everyone came in, you introduced everyone else. And I thought, this was like, as someone who at the time probably was leaning more towards being an introvert, and if people know me now, I'm like really extroverted, which I really am. I've always been an extrovert. I just didn't really talk much to new people, and it wasn't like an anxiety thing. It's just I don't know if I was just not really sure of myself, to kind of speak to people. So I was like, yeah, this is a great thing to do for people who may feel uncomfortable in a space. And you have always been, even with Pyramid 7, a really great example of like how to include people. And I thought that was just like an amazing thing. And I'm like, this is beautiful. It's like people care about you. Say like they were like saying really great things about you. In the little corner I was in, because I was in a corner, like there were people in the corner with me, which I didn't think. I was like, we're kind of like standing, blocking the little hallway.
Yeah.
And
I remember exactly where you
like,
were. You're like right across from the kitchen, near the laundry and stuff. Because
yeah,
you're like right in
I was
that
right there. I
area
stood there
with like Tina and my sister, which is crazy because also like I had some good drinks and I smoked. So like that night, I remember a lot of things, but also after a certain point, I just remember being like, "Oh yeah, everything has hit." Like, but but yeah, like I'm. So I'm introverted, or I'm an extroverted introvert. So like I do really great with one-on-ones, or one, like me being a group of four, one of four. But anything more, I really just like kind of sink in the back. And like I am not not that I don't enjoy parties, but I have a hard time being social in parties. And so sometimes I think it would be nice to have everybody's name, even though I probably wouldn't remember it if I was there. Like if I was a guest to a party, but like somebody might come up to me and be like, "Oh, Zipporah, I really like that name. Like, where did you?" Like, you mean like that's a conversation starter. And I don't know. I just want people to feel comfortable, especially in my home. Like, I think me and my partner, we both like work really hard to try to just make sure everybody's comfortable and everybody have what they need and everybody's eating good food and have the drinks that they want. And like it's an experience, and I'm gratified and satisfied when people that I care about are like feel welcome and feel full with love and excitement. And yeah, I remember you were like one of the last people, and I was just like, I remember just thinking like, I didn't expect Irma to like be here this late, because like, but like I'm so happy that they're enjoying themselves. Like I think going back to the like, we didn't know each other well, but I knew that there was good energy between us. And so it like really made my heart warm to like see that you're still there. I remember you're talking to Jackie, you had talked to Aisha, which is so funny now. Like that y'all met in my home, and then now like you have your own, like you're at Aisha's house cat sitting.
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah, no, that's really dope. I feel like I often talk to somebody about this, how like when I do things, I'm just like, oh yeah, like I do this, like everybody, like it's not a big deal, right? Um, but it's nice to be reminded of like the impact that you have in people's life. Because if it's not for like reminders like this, then I'm just like, oh yeah, like I just did this thing. Like even with Pyramid 7, I'm like, oh yeah, I just did this thing. It was, like I talk about it as if it was something that wasn't what it was. Like, oh yeah, I just did this gender inclusive period brand, and we did international shipments. It was wide, like worldwide, recognized. And then I'll just be like, oh yeah, that was it. Like, so it's really dope when people remind you of like, oh no, but that should be celebrated. That's a big thing. Like it's nice to hear that.
Yeah.
So
And so while we're there, let's get into it just a little bit.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So, um, what like sparked your like starting Pyramid 7? Like, what was the moment where you're like, you know what, this needs to be a thing?
So with Pyramid 7, I remember I was on my period. I was at work, and this was like a contract position, and like I was pretty like cool with everybody who I worked with. Like I don't feel like there was ever any like, oh, I don't really like mess with this person, or this person will leave me high and dry. Like I felt like I had good conversation with everybody. Everybody was cool. We worked in a small space. We worked pretty not intimately together, but like there was one big room. You know what I mean? Like we were all in this space together. And I remember I was at the time I was a packaging mock-up artist, which basically means that like when you see packaging design, you get like an iPhone, for example. You open you take the plastic off that box, all the stuff in it, like a designer designed all that. And so before you get to like live version packaging, you have to make mock-ups. So it's printed on a sheet of paper, and there's like dotted lines that mean one thing. There's straight lines that mean another. You have an X-Acto knife and you're cutting, you're building, you're placing product in it to ship as demos so that we would ship to like, say Walmart, for example. And they would say, yes, we want 50,000 of these. So that was like my job. I was just building stuff. This was like a very in between job. I figured out that I did not want to be a graphic designer anymore. I did not want to. I did not want to make rich people richer. I did not want to like. I didn't feel like there was purpose in the work that I was doing. So I decided to work at this place. But I just was like, I needed to make money. But I'm not going to retail. That was my thing. I'm not going back to retail.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to find a job that I can still make good money because I know how to do X, Y, and Z. So I was doing this. Like I said, the work culture was all right for the most part. And I was on my period and I was working, no crazy day or anything like that. But I don't remember if it was the end of the day. It had to be the end of the day. But I had went home. I had noticed I had leaked through my underwear onto my pants, which were like some light blue jeans. And I'm like, none of y'all could have told me this. I was so upset. I was just like, we're not best friends or anything like that, but we be talking every day. None of y'all saw this. None of y'all wanted to alert me. Like none, and it's crazy because it wasn't necessarily. It wasn't the like me having to wear at the time. I would wear like black, like feminine underwear on my period. It wasn't that pushed me over the edge. It was just like I leaked. I never leaked, and none of y'all could have told me. And then it was like on top of that, I have to wear these underwear that I'm uncomfortable with all day. That was just like for me, that was like just the icing on the cake. I don't know why it was the icing, right? Because at that point, I mean, I don't know how old I was with Pyramid 7. I was probably 20. I knew Angie. So I think I was 25. It had to be like 24, 25. So I think for me, that was just the ice on the cake. I think all my life I've been irritated at the fact that I couldn't comfortably, as comfortably as I could be on my period, right? Like that was really irritating to me. I think that day was just I won't say the breaking point, but that was the day. That I was so irritated and fed up with it. And then I was just like, okay, I would want boxer briefs for like that were my period. Like for masculine at that point, in the like first thought process was like masculine women. Like we need something. And that was like the start of it. I remember drawing how it could work. I remember coming up with different names, thinking of like looking up definition of words, right? Things like that. And that was, I could continue rambling, but that was the day, that was the kickstart of like Pyramid 7. It was like, I know y'all, I've been working with y'all, and y'all couldn't even just be like, hey, yo, I think your pants are leaking, like something. And then I was just like, but then on top of that, gotta wear these funky ass panties. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to wear panties. Like,
that'd be I completely like relate to you. Because like at the time when with Pyramid 7, I was like, this is a great idea, because I honestly had underwear I didn't wear any other time. And it was just like, the bottom of the drawer. I don't like them. I honestly would even wear the panties and then put the boxer briefs.
I've done that too.
On top. Because I'm just like, I just got to have it because it makes me feel like affirmed. But I also kind of need these panties.
You do, yeah, right. And that's the thing. Like I would describe to people that it's kind of like being out of fresh clothes and only having that one pair of ugly underwear or whatever, like the ones that you might have for 10 years that you ain't never really liked from the get, but this is what you got and you have to wear that. Like it doesn't matter how you're going through your day. If you're wearing clothes that you don't feel like affirms your identity or your existence, or just like make you feel bare minimum just neutral, you know what I mean? Like that's how it feels when you have to when you're someone who don't wear like feminine underwear and have to for 5 to 7 minimum days out of a month. Some people have longer periods or menstruate for longer. So like people who wear boxer briefs and who might have something that causes for them to like menstruate longer might be in those might be in feminine underwear for like more than 7 days, right? And so like we're just talking about just like bare minimum feeling okay. Like your underwear have a lot to do with that.
So what was like the point where because I heard you saying that like at first it was something for like masculine women. What was the point where you changed the language?
It was luckily right before we even launched. It was the day that we did the photo shoot. The photo shoot that's like everywhere with Sal and Fur, Angie's in there, Devin, Nisi is in there. Who else? Jacob is in there. But there's this conversation. I remember my fiance was like, "Oh, I could wear these," and I was like, "You're feminine. What do you mean? Like these are for you?" And she was like, "No, I could wear these like when I bike because I wear like shorts underneath my dress, like." Or like the person at the time who was creating the underwear was like, "I mean, I'm not feminine, but I wear them." And then like I remember looking at models. Well, it was a little bit before the day that I submitted it was the day of the photo shoot. But we were looking for models. And I remember finding myself uh, being the judge of who is masculine enough, like whose appearance of masculinity fit my description of masculinity. And I was like, why am I the judge of that? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? I am not the one with the key to saying whose masculinity is valid, because originally I put the post out asking for masculine people who wear box briefs, and I would get people who, like, I didn't think were terribly masculine looking. You're like, for
Mm-hmm.
me, right? And then so once I was able to check that, then I think that was when it started being like, okay, it's for like masculine people. And then I remember my partner saying, like, I'd wear this. And then I was like, oh no, this is for like people who menstruate, people with periods. Like, this is like, it just started being like that. Like, knowing that, like, my perception of someone does not affirm their identity or discredit their identity. And that the trust of how someone identifies, like, is valid because that's how they identify. Like, that has absolutely
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with me. So if they say, "Hey, I'm masculine," or "Hey, whatever," then it's not my right to tell them otherwise. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it just don't make sense. And so that was kind of like the beginning of it. We changed the language from like masculine women. Um, and we completely dropped masculine. We just said people who menstruate, people with periods.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, it was like, this isn't even about masculinity. This is about comfort. This is about
Yeah.
people who want to wear boxer briefs while they're menstruating. The end. And we're going to show you people whose voices and experiences aren't highlighted. Yeah, it took a bit of, like, that's the thing about DEI work, is like, you have to be open to hearing people's criticism. You just have to. Because if you don't, then, like, you're no different than any of the other companies who are doing shit wrong.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it will continue to do shit wrong. Like, there's brands who continue to do shit wrong and they get backlash every time and continue to do, like, they don't, you know what I mean? So I'm not even going to get on that soapbox.
Right. I mean, there's so many out there who definitely continue to do things wrong. And so it's really important to be able to receive, as you said, receive criticism and to be open to receiving more information, because I think it's really interesting, especially even as like queer people, where oftentimes there's like queer people who think that they, know all of the language and even know how to be inclusive. There's always going to be more information and more things to learn. So it's definitely important for us to be open to receive that.
I don't often, but sometimes whenever something like this comes up, I like to mention that, like, learning, I used to say, like, being progressive, but that's not really it. It's like the betterment of yourself is in learning and accepting and change behavior. And that's not a finish line sport. Like, it's just ongoing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing 100 meters and then stopping. It's a long game. It is continuously changing. Hell, we might, in 20 years, we might listen to this podcast and be like, "Ooh, man, we use some language. Ooh, this didn't age well." You know what I mean? But, like, this is what the language is right now, and it's continuously changing. I mean, I have a friend who I really love, and they're art. They were an art instructor. They own a genderless athletic brand, and they were just like, "Look, always look at the youth. The youth is the key." And, like, I remember they would tell me about what kids in New York were saying around gender identity and gender expression back in 2016, 2017. And that shit was like, what? Like, I mean, it makes sense, but what? Okay, that makes sense. I could get with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about, like, hearing people's experiences and not fighting them on it. You know what I mean? Just hearing it, taking it in, and like just going from there.
I agree. I definitely think it's it's the young people that are going to pave the way for sure. And it's really important just to like listen to people, because as you were saying, like recording this episode, um, and as I was like starting season 3, I went back and listened to previous episodes and thinking of the things that I said in 2018, 2019 aren't things that I would say now. So we're constantly learning and growing, and it's really important for us to do that. And so, kind of as you move and do work now, how or what are some like ways that how are you learning new things and receiving new information?
So some of it's with work. So I work at Higher Brown Health, which is a nonprofit healthcare org here in Chicago. They provide healthcare to people living with HIV and AIDS, as well as just a greater LGBTQ plus community in Chicago. And so around like inclusive language, and just being up to date on new things, new conversations. Like I work in the communications team, so like we have discussions about updating brand guidelines and seeing what might be outdated, seeing like, hey, this word doesn't work well, but like, is this the best word? Like, should we use both words? Like things like that. I used to work for a company called the Chicago Cultural Alliance, who is a nonprofit here in Chicago who works with over 40 different cultural centers or cultural museums and heritage centers in Chicago. And so, like, I was intentional about that job around like learning about different cultures, because the reality of it is that like we as people only know the extension of the people around us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot about being Black. I know a lot about being queer. I know a lot about being like mask, like presenting. Um, I know a little bit about what it feels like to be misgendered because people call me sir. You know what I mean? Like, like I know these things, right? But like, I don't know what it is to be, for example, multi-ethnic and not have a space that can have like people who are not, right? Like, I don't know what it feels like not to be able-bodied, right? And so I think just going outside of myself, like whenever I find out things that are different from my experience, I try to like learn about them. One of the things with the Heritage Museum was the Cambodian genocide. Didn't know shit about that. Not in this country. I didn't know shit about that. Didn't know about um, internment camps here in the U.S. Like, didn't know about other people suffering. Right? Didn't. And so I think part of it is like seeing stuff and like being like, oh, what's happening here? So the conversation around East Asian people right now, and them being brutalized and hurt and killed, right? Or why is it that I think it's like a third of Filipino nurses have died from COVID? Like, why? What's happening, right? So I think a big part of it is just like we all scroll and we all click and we often click on things that just apply to us. And
Yeah.
like on the off chance that you see something that's not about your experience, but it's about people, right? Like, I think it's important to click on it and figure out, at least to understand. This is a very long answer, but in short, like, just put in effort.
Right.
It's not that easy because like I have a crap ton of just saved tabs. But even if you want to go on Vox Media, they have a YouTube channel. They talk about stuff about different cultures, different types of people. They talk about the news. go to TED education, TED Talks. Like these are thousands of people talking about various subjects. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? TED education breaks down things, whether it's like illnesses or whatever the case. The information is always out there. Literally just go on YouTube, type it in, and just let it play. And I don't know, listen to podcasts. You know what I mean? Like I learn stuff on podcasts all the time. You know what I mean?
That
It's just about taking the time and energy and making space, like carving out space for it.
you say that, and I too have so many tabs, and I'm constantly, every time I see something, I will, even if I don't have the time in that moment to read it, I have multiple Instagrams, so I'll like send it to my other Instagram, so I'll like, let me check these messages later. Like, let me save
Yeah,
that so I can
yeah,
read that. And one thing that I've learned from just kind of like being around you and talking to you is like your ability. You do have the ability to receive new information, and I do think that a lot of people can like learn from that. Is just like the way that if you say something that may be someone is just like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't use that. You're just like, oh, okay, what, what should I say type of
yeah,
thing. And just, and learn from that and grow from that. And I think that's really important. I recall going to a talk that you had, which was like really informative because as I've been um, building my own brand, um, or even just the way that we communicate with one another on social media and just um, how to just engage with multiple people, um, and to get out of like our own mind of what we know, right?
yeah,
Because we can talk about like oh, I'm black, I'm trans, I'm non-binary, I'm mask presenting, and I'm all these things, and like I can act like well everything that I say and do is right, and it's not, because everyone
yeah,
has there's so many different experiences even within that, and
yeah,
so what I think might be okay is not okay to somebody else, and
yeah,
it's definitely important just to be able to receive that information and to do, our own education. So to
yeah.
look it up
I
and
I also feel like nothing's binary. Like nothing is
mhm,
binary. Like
nothing.
I've seen stuff around there's not the easiest way to say this, there's not one spoke person or one perfect example of anything. I
Hmm.
know right after George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd happened, there is this social media trend of black men saying, like in like a suit and a tie, and saying, "I'm a black man. I build. I do this. I." And the idea of it was for people, especially non-black people, to see the humanity in black people. Um, but it was also so interesting because these photos were photos of like men looking professional, right?
Hmm.
Men subscribing to these ideas of what white people see a good black man is, a good black person
Yeah.
is. And so it was just like for me so hard to see it because I'm just like like us breathing is enough. You know what I mean? Like and so like there's like that's one example. Another example is just like when you're talking about people who don't identify as cis, like say someone who might be trans, for example, does that mean like what they need is based off of their needs, not anyone's expectations. Like
Hmm.
it's like wow, because I've seen so much like hating and bashing on people's page from other say trans people who's like, well, you're not man enough, or you're not woman enough, or
Hmm.
you're not passing, right? Like all these things, and it's crazy because like somebody might be like, I didn't want to pass, I just don't need this, right? Or I just
Hmm.
needed this. And so there's all these examples of like of what people expect for you to be or look like or act
Hmm.
like given any part of your identity, and it's all bullshit. um, because it's really about like who you are and what you want and what you need.
So, as just to wrap this up, the little segment, this topic of like language, um, what is something that like you would offer to people, whether they're like young or just as we continue to grow in language? Um, because I myself, even one of the things when like I talk to people is like people often talk to me about like transitioning, and as you said, you know, what that is for someone is not the same for other people. Like I don't use that word. I'm just like, oh, I'm aligning myself. And
Mhm.
so, you know, language is like constantly changing and growing. So what is and I guess we can just make this the like some smart the smart boy, which the smart boy moment is where we offer some advice. So I'm just gonna just slide right into it real quick. So what type of like advice you would give to people that are like listening in about um, how to grow and how to change, and also allow like some grace for that? Because like I said, 2 years ago, the things that we were saying, um, not that it was bad, but it's just like, no, I would have used different language now.
Yeah.
So, you know, what is something you would offer people to allow things to like grow, change, and to
First, I just say that Facebook loved to remind us about the things we used to say and how we used to say them. So, even like me at where I am now in my life and being more cautious about the words that I use, um, I get literal daily reminders from Facebook reminding me that like that I would say some crazy things. And so I think that like first it's like we all grow, we all learn.
Mhm.
I don't think there's many people who can look back at themselves at 18 and felt like they had it figured out or that they were doing anything correct. And so like and that's just like being human, right? Like that's just growing and learning and applying. So I think first off it's like allow yourself grace. Like this is to our knowledge, our first time around. This is my first time being 30. Okay. Last year was my first time being 29. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
all of these are first. Like we're learning and we are never going to be at a point where we have everything packed down. So like be kind to yourself. I like to tell people that be kind to yourself. Like be nice. Be nice to yourself, you know? Or like treat yourself how you would treat someone you really love about. Like you treat yourself the way that you would treat someone that you really love. So like for example, if your partner is treating you horrible and if you wouldn't let your best friend or your sibling date someone who treat them that bad, then like apply that same like logic about how you love them so much and don't want them to hurt that way
Mhm.
to yourself. Like love yourself, be kind to yourself. You're like worthy and deserving of all these great things. Um Second thing is trust people's experiences.
Mm.
Like you can't we all want to think that we know it all. How am I a cis queer like uh masculine presenting person going to tell you how to live your life as non-binary trans mask? Like I don't have that experience. I can't give you a guideline or a book or my opinion of what that looks like. My idea of what that looks like is not something that you should ever feel like you should subscribe to. It's not something that I should ever make you feel like you should, right? Like,
Right.
and believing you when you say like, this is my experience as this person living with these identities. Like
Mhm.
that's enough by itself. I think remembering that people who have experiences are the one who can be in control of a conversation about their identity. You can also recognize that like every identity is not the same. Like everybody who has similar identities are not the same. I'm queer and I'm mask presenting, but like I am a big old like little spoon. Okay. My partner spoons me every night. Okay. Like I don't feel like I have to be macho or I don't have to. I am a soft baby. I'm a soft Pisces baby. And that's
Yes,
just what it is.
I'm here for the softness.
But you know what I mean? Like I at a point where, especially when I was growing up, felt the need to like be how society thought I should be as someone who dressed masculine, right? And I still get that. I still get people who ask me if I'm like a stud, right? Or like you act kind of feminine and things like that. And I think it's easy to like want to put people in boxes because that's just how humans are. Really, all I'm saying is just that like believe people's experiences, believe what they say that how they see their life, how they see their experience, and just take that in. Every Black person is not the same.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like one Black person's experience is valid. So yeah, allow yourself grace. Believe people. Believe their experiences. I've met people who are like Black and queer and mass presenting who are cis and who have different experiences than me.
I soak that, I take all of that in because I think trust people experiences, that was a word. That really was, because that's true that we should just trust people experiences. I'm always telling people, as a trans non-binary person, masculine presenting, I am femme, all of these things, but like even as identifying as like a femboy, like how I do me is not how somebody else, how is completely different. There's a whole bunch of non-binary people out here who express that differently, even if it's just like wearing makeup or getting their nails done. I mean, I might get my nails done, but I'm not going to get color. And so, or I don't wear makeup. And so the way that I walk in the world is a little differently from someone who's non-binary and who does wear makeup, because they're going to be perceived differently. And so there's just a lot of different experiences in that. And I know that experience is valid. How I experience the world, also valid.
Yeah.
And like, there's like the nuance of all of these identities, and how people are perceived and how the world sees us and how we see the world.
So complex.
It's so complex, and it's just about like being open to receiving more information.
Yeah, I think people get really caught up on like the one example. People use very specific examples to place a blanket over an entire group of people.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to literally the millions of experiences that are different. So, and I think that's part of the reason, that's a small piece of like why I want to do the work that I do, because there's so many complex experiences that aren't being shared or that people have no clue about. Like, have you heard of how people be like, especially older generations, oh, there weren't queer people back in the day. You know what I mean? Like there weren't people who was out, right? And I always talk about like how big of a role technology plays. Like, okay, there weren't mass media that was accessible where people could hear about food deserts, okay, and be able to literally, unfortunately, see Black and brown people being murdered, right? Having this collective voice or this collective experience that is amplified because of media, right? Or being able to like meet people who have the same experience as you through social media and like build a platform on that, or to amplify social issues because of that. Like the way that we connect with people is different than we have ever done in the entire existence of humans. And right. So like you and your bubble might not have known any queer people because of, let's start with, okay, first off, safety, but second off, technology and things like that. But like we have always been here, right? The disparities that Black and brown people face have always been here. There just wasn't a magnifying glass. There was a ceiling. You know what I mean?
This episode is being sponsored by Soma Gems. Soma Gems is a Chicago-based, Black woman-owned, spiritually aligned jewelry collective. Soma Gems marries quality jewelry with the enriching metaphysical properties of gemstones and crystals. You all, look, I got some gemstone dropped earrings that I absolutely love. I wear them every day. I also got a really dope necklace. I'm telling you, I love this jewelry line. Go check them out, and it is at shopsomagems.com, and it's spelled SOMA. You can use the promo code BOYS, BOIS, 30 for 30% off. Go there, get you something for yourself, for your boo. You can get something matching and be cute. Now, if you get something matching, look, I love couple shit, so just like post pics and let me see it. Y'all, go check them out. Let them know that Boys Meet World sent you. Again, I want to say thank you to Zipporah, the homie.
Thank you.
First guest, season 3.
I love always having conversations around like things like this with you. It's always great. It's also just great to see like where like our friendship has grown, and also just seeing you growing and like the way your language has changed. I know you're like them boy Fridays, I believe. Like I was sitting in all the comments last time, but it's so great to witness you be great, and I really appreciate this invite and talking with you. So thank you.
For sure. This has been great. I'm so glad that we finally got you on Boys Meet World. Thank you for joining us. Thank you all, everyone, for listening in, tuning in, all that good stuff. You all, again, go out here, be some smart boys, be some good boys, be some tender boys.
Some sweet baby boys.
Yes. I love you all. Have a great and safe week. And also share this podcast with someone you love.
Yes.
And Naha says bye as well.